So I'd just like to take a couple of minutes and give a review of Coinbase.com, which is really an investing and trading platform for Bitcoin. With Bitcoin, now in December of 2016 being about $800 more or less per Bitcoin, a lot of people are getting back into investing in Bitcoin after being deterred for a number of years after the price initially spiked to $1,100 or $1,200 and then crashed all the way down to $200. And since then it's been rising gradually at a much more controlled and steady pace than we saw in the beginning of the decade. So one of the easiest ways really to invest in Bitcoin for those that aren't too technologically savvy is by opening a Coinbase.com account, and Coinbase allows you to buy Bitcoin with your bank account or your credit card, and you can store it on their online wallet, thus reducing the risk associated with holding the Bitcoin on your personal computer. There are some benefits, to Coinbase, one of them being that it's fairly easy to make investments, weekly recurring purchases, monthly recurring purchases, things of that nature. There's also a little bit more security in that your own identity can be used to, verify ownership, whereas on the computer, it's just like having a file, a Word file or something that you have to hold on to. You're the one that's solely responsible for that file and therefore solely responsible for your Bitcoin. Now, some of the positives of using Coinbase are the ease of use and, the ability for the average person to get in without having to set up a Bitcoin wallet on their computer or worrying about getting locked out of their computer or the security vulnerability issues, things of that nature. They also offer a Bitcoin vault, which is kind of like a paper wallet, but it's stored actually offline by Coinbase. Now, you've probably been hearing a lot of news lately about Coinbase being, audited by the IRS, or not audited, but the IRS asking Coinbase and the court granting the IRS request to get the information on all Coinbase users up to about 2014 or 2015. The IRS wants to know, how many Bitcoin every person who had an account had and how many Bitcoins they traded, what type of profits they made on it. So those who have Bitcoin accounts on Coinbase.com are really subject to more government overreach, and that sort of, to some extent, defeats the purpose of Bitcoin, which is supposed to be, a decentralized system where you are the person that's solely responsible for your Bitcoin, just like you would be if you had cash or gold coins. Coinbase is sort of like a bank for your Bitcoin, but it eliminates a lot of the positive aspects, in many's opinion, of using something like Bitcoin. And as you can see now that the IRS has, gotten the information, those that used Coinbase for their Bitcoin transactions have completely eliminated the anonymity that Bitcoin supposedly guarantees you. On top of that, it's very expensive to buy and sell Bitcoin on Coinbase. You pay up to a 4% fee, which, when you think about it, is ridiculous. For someone who's trading, to pay 4% is crazy. But even if you're just investing, you take a loss of 4% right off the bat, plus an additional loss when you're selling the Bitcoin. So you would realistically need to make up to 8% of a profit in just right off the bat for making the purchase in order for you to break even. So a $5 purchase runs you somewhere around $5.20. And for those making, small incremental purchases with the credit card to make it, or your debit card or something like that, the fees are ridiculously high, and they've been getting higher and higher with Coinbase's increasing legal fees and the increasing trouble they've been having over the years. Coinbase is not insured. Some people think that your funds in there are insured. With Bitcoin, there's no such thing as insurance. You are your own insurance. You are your own bank. You are your own insurance. So, you know, the entire purpose really of having this Bitcoin is to remove yourself to some extent from the financial system that's in place by the authorities. And the one thing about Bitcoin is that if you hold your Bitcoin, they can't really be seized. There's no way for anybody to come in and simply take your Bitcoin without hacking your wallet or getting access to the file associated with your wallet. But using a third party service like Coinbase, it makes that risk there once again. So the same risks you have with your bank account, such as IRS seizures, is now becoming relevant again in Coinbase. So those that thought that they can evade taxes or things of that nature with by using Coinbase, to convert their Bitcoin to US dollars, they're in for quite a surprise, simply because unlike cash deals where you use localbitcoins.com or something along that nature to make a cash deal for your Bitcoins, the government can easily track it and track your history. And if you owe taxes, you can bet that those Bitcoin holdings are going to be seized from you. If you had those Bitcoins, you're also going to have to pay short-term capital gains tax on trades, basically eliminating a lot of the profitability that most people who profited off trading Bitcoin in that time period obtained. So when you think about it, Coinbase makes it easy, but Coinbase is not something that's long-term beneficial to you. There's a lot of downsides. There's a lot of risks associated with Coinbase, and some of you may say, I'm not doing anything wrong. I plan on paying my taxes through making my investments, and I'm going to use Coinbase for that reason. And that's perfectly fine, as long as you know the risks that are associated with holding your Bitcoin in Coinbase, then you basically know, what the odds are of you losing those Bitcoins to the government, the way that the government takes, money, and Bitcoin itself can act like a bank. They can jack up their fees at any time and make it inherently more difficult for you to profit off selling your Bitcoins. So there's got to be a better way, they structure themselves really the way a broker-dealer structured themselves in the financial industry. And while they do have, anti-money laundering practices and things of that nature, there's nothing to stop your funds from being seized by the authorities once they decide to do that if you're holding them in Bitcoin. There's also no way for you to evade paying taxes if the reason why you're using Bitcoin is because you don't believe in the tax system. So those are things you need to consider. The long-term capital gains tax, if you're holding for a year or longer, is 15%. So 15% of the profit that you make on your Bitcoin is going to go to the government. And I know that the reason a lot of people use Bitcoin is because they want to withdraw themselves from the system. They don't want to be a part of, the financial system in the United States or anywhere in the world, especially in places where your governments are inherently unstable and manipulating currency and things of that nature, screwing over the public and their funds right and left. So you need to take those things into serious consideration. What I would tell you if you're planning on opening an account with Coinbase is to only put in there what you can afford to lose, because you never know what's going to happen to a place like Coinbase, especially if the IRS and the government decide to come after them for, any purposes, regardless of what type of licensing they have. What you need to understand is that if the government wants your money, they're going to take it from Coinbase. And if they want Coinbase's money, likewise, they're going to take it from Coinbase as well. So in 2017, there are a lot more options for this. There are, you can store your Bitcoin in a paper wallet. You can store them in a wallet on your computer. There's tons of different ways. There's simply no reason why you should keep these, funds that were designed with the intent to avoid dealing with the larger financial system that's in place by the government and the central bank and regulatory authorities. There's really no reason for you to use something like Coinbase. It sort of defeats the idealistic purpose of of using Bitcoin in the first place. One of the larger issues you're going to face is those ridiculously high fees. Those fees are out of control, really, and they're just getting higher and higher. One of the issues I've noticed is that right after the IRS hit Coinbase with the subpoena, Coinbase decided to move their payment processor over to the UK. That's likely to avoid, further monitoring of transactions by the authorities to see how much anybody is buying. But the UK is not, it's not a place that's going to be unfriendly to the U.S. government if the U.S. government wants that information. All moving to the UK for payment processing did is jack up the fees for you using Coinbase. So it's kind of, they shot themselves in the foot really there by making it inherently obvious that that they're moving their payment processing for that purpose, even though when I contacted Coinbase about this, they, are insistent that the two things are unrelated, yet they couldn't give me an answer as to why they would move their payment processor out of the US, especially since they're a US-based company with the majority of their clients being US-based clients. It just doesn't make sense. So their customer service has gotten worse over the few years that I've used them. And now we can see that they're misrepresenting information, and they're not being as upfront and honest with their clients as they were in the past, and that's ultimately going to harm them. So if you're thinking about using Coinbase, take all of that into consideration. Or a number of years after the price initially spiked to $1,100 or $1,200 and then crashed all the way down to $200. And since then, it's been rising gradually at a much more, controlled. In December of 2016, being about $800 more or less per Bitcoin. A lot of people are, getting back into investing in Bitcoin after being deterred for. So I'd just like to take a couple of minutes and give a review of Coinbase.com, which is really an investing and trading platform for Bitcoin. With Bitcoin, now opening a Coinbase.com account, and Coinbase allows you to buy Bitcoin with your bank account or your credit card, and you can store it on their online wallet, thus reducing the risk associated with holding in steady pace than we saw in the beginning of the decade. So one of the easiest ways really to invest in Bitcoin for those that aren't too technologically savvy is by opening